Vanitas. So we saw in the meta in Toronto, then it took a steep dive, and we haven't seen it really too much since. We've seen Kongming, Razor Gale pop up, but is Vanitas gone? Well, not quite, because before Toronto, before AMB, there was Vanitas topping several regionals and events. And so it's not a bad deck, you just have to build it differently than you did in Toronto, and probably a little bit differently than before AMB. But let's jump right in. So we are going to go Serene Spirit of Wind, so we want that Glimpse, we want that Heal. We are going Vanitas level 1, obviously, so we get that Wind element bonus back. So this is honestly just really solid. It allows us to set up our hand, allows us to do stuff that allows us to plus right off the bat, so it's like as if we're not having a Serene Spirit. And we're doing, we have a lot of draws in the deck, so Serene Spirit isn't that bad of, of a card to go with, essentially. We have Vanitas, we get to Glimpse another 4. This was what made Vanitas so strong with Razor Gale, is that you can almost always start the game with one because you get to Glimpse 6, and then you get to Glimpse another 4, and there's another card that allows us to Glimpse another 4 as well. So, yeah, Cleric, Wind, Glimpse 4 on enter, really, really solid. Ventus, Staff of Zephyrs, this is still in the deck. It's still very solid. It's not as good as it is in Kongming, because Kongming gets to run Bagwas and Tempest Downfall, I believe it's called. And those put counters on the mage, on this as well. This is just, if we happen to get enough counters, we have to essentially get a free suppression. There's a couple, we get cyclical breezes, so we can do a little bit more, counter synergies with this as well still, but it's not as good as it is in Kongming. And then we have Draw. So we do just have Wind and Water Resonance Bauble. Fire has fallen off. Fire's not as scary necessarily, but I don't have a sideboard built, but I would suggest putting Fire Bauble in the sideboard, just to have, one to swap out if you need to. If you go against Merlin, go against aggro, Fire Aggro Xander, Fire Aggro Tony, Fire Aggro Lorraine, Fire Aggro Jin, whatever it might be, you have one in there to supplement for one of these Wind and Water Baubles. We have GCR. We don't need to go Grail, we don't need to go Mercurial Heart, we don't need to go Temporal Spectrometer, and we don't need to go Imperial Steel. There's just no point, so GCR, another draw is really nice. Backup Charger, hey, guess what? I just showed you 3 draw cards, here's another. After that, we do have one more draw card, and that is Cleric Robes. So Cleric Robes, it does cost 1, but it is something that we're able to bounce with Baby Green to get its on-draw card effect with our Baby Green. So Baby Greens then become similar to Baby Greys are, and it can prevent 1 damage, which comes up here and there, but not super relevant. Might be relevant just to put a card down and maybe block the damage, wherever it might be. Just a really nice card. We do have extra floating memory in the deck. We only go into level 1. This is the only other thing that costs the floating memory, so we'll be fine if we get to use that for that case as well. Necklace of Foresight. This is our other Glimpse 4. It is free when we are Vanitas level 1. So we go to Vanitas level 1, Glimpse 4. We can then bring this out the next turn. Glimpse 4. We Glimpse 6 off the bat, 4 after that, and another 4 after that. We are like just an insane amount of cards deep in our deck, especially with all the card draw and other glimpses that we just have in the deck as well. So Necklace of Foresight, very, very good. Safeguard Amulet. It is protection, goes along with our Tariff Ring. Here's another protection card. They go hand in hand. We are going a little bit more ally-based, so Tariff Ring, which you might not have seen in other decks, is a little bit better. And Safeguard Amulet is just always pretty solid just because of how much spell damage there is, or non-attack damage there is in the game. And then we have a new one in our Toronto list. And other lists, we're playing Nullifying Lantern. I moved this to Nullifying Mirror because there's more Razor Gales, there's more Revitalizing Cleanse thing. The heal based off of memory, and there's Ascension, of course, so this can help prevent a lot of that kind of stuff as well. Can stop and view if you are doing, the recollection might be relevant if you notice that they're bouncing windmills or whatever it might be. So Nullifying Mirror is there to help us out a little bit. Again, I'd probably suggest putting Nullifying Lantern in the side. It doesn't hurt us too much. It can, of course, but you just gotta time it right. Maybe it's really important against stuff like Nico and the self-mill deck, so it might just be relevant to just bring in the sideboard as well. But let's move on to the main deck. But before I do, announcements from me, actually. And I'm just gonna do it right here. So, we have a couple really cool announcements. First of all, our regionals. Our regionals for Michigan regionals, our True Champion regionals, happen January 11th in 2025 at Ann Arbor, Michigan. Link in the description to buy a ticket, and that's on that ticket page. There's all the information you need for what would be what's going to be at the event. We're gonna have a ton of giveaways. We already have just an insane amount of giveaways stocked up. It's gonna be a great event. Hope to see you guys there. Don't miss out on that. Get your tickets down below. Also, we have our new partnership. So we, unfortunately, during the AMB release, got a little unfortunate luck when it came to allocations. So going forward, we are no longer going to do any kind of pre-orders through us. Instead, you can get your pre-orders through Perfect Fit. There's a link down below. At checkout, you can use True5 on any of their products, and you'll get 5% off any of the purchases you make there. We get a little kickback, helps us out. If you want to get Dragon Shield sleeves, we still have that. Again, link down below. Use that link. It helps us out. You can also use True5 at checkout. Link does help us out more for some reason. Not sure why that is, but it just tends to happen that way. And then, of course, I believe we have a TCG affiliate link. I don't even know if that works anymore, but that's going to be down below too. So if you want to check out any of those stuff, help support us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. But let's get into the main deck. So we have 3 Razor Gales. Now, I really thought about bumping this up to 4. I kind of really wanted to bump it up to 4, but we are going a little more ally based. We are going on the board because we do have something like Ascents to fight for board a little bit more. Razor Gales, you only really, you want to see 4, and honestly, maybe you do bump this up to 4. There's a card I would probably cut. I can tell you a couple cards I would cut here and there. In testing, it felt like I didn't have time to play more than 2 Razor Gales. It kind of felt like I was struggling to keep up if I tried to put down a 3rd. It does cost a lot cheaper, which is really nice. But while we don't get to glimpse as much as we used to because of 3 Visits nerf and just and the power that 3 Visits had, and so we're running less of those. We're going to glimpse less because we only do it once per turn, and then also we're not activating as much, so we want to see less of those in general. But we have a couple of other ways to supplement the damage, essentially, is what I'm getting at, that Razor Gale used to do when you had 2, 3, 4 of these on board. Again, you could bump it up to 4. I don't think it's a wrong choice. It's just a personal preference. We are running 2 Dominating Strike. So we only have 2 3 Visits in the deck because it is so slow. You don't really need to see more than 2. And with how much we glimpse, you will probably see pretty close to all 2, or if it's just not 1, usually 1's enough. But Dominating Strike is also what's going to rest our champion, and so having Dominating Strikes and 3 Visits kind of conflict against each other, and this pushes 4 damage. If you have a Razor Gale out, it pushes 5 damage, so it's really, really nice. And so we might not be able to get that 3 Visits like we want to. So 2 Dominating Strike pushes a lot of damage. It costs free if you have 3 Wind Element cards in your memory, which is really, really cool. Like I was talking about earlier, we do have 2 3 Visits. Just not as powerful as it was. Still very good. You could bump this up to 3. I would not do more than 3. It starts to feel really it feels like it clogs your hand, essentially. I'm trying to, when I was playing this, I'm trying to, make sure that the deck runs smoothly and doesn't feel like you have a dead hand all the time, because that can happen very easily. 4 Fairy Whispers. I'm leaving this at 4. This is really good. Razor Gale Kongming plays 4 Fairy Whispers, 4 Bagwas, because it's similar to Fairy Whispers, very similar, honestly in some ways better, but Fairy Whispers is just probably the best card in the deck, one of the best cards, and we are at 4 Scouts. Again, we just want to glimpse, we want to look, and this doesn't glimpse, but it does allow us to dig a little bit deeper and set up our deck for the next couple turns, or we can play this, draw a card, then use a Fairy Whispers, get another card and bottom the other 2. Still very good, it's a cheap draw card, keep our influence high, all that jazz. And then we have some utility cards. We have 4 Veiling. While this does have an out because of Nullifying Mirror, still a really good card. If they don't bring out Nullifying Mirror in any timely manner, you can block a lot of damage earlier. I would say be careful. Just be very careful, because if you think you're 100% safe, with this card, you're not, and you might need to play oddly to make sure you get as much value out of this as possible instead of 0 value and just making a dead card in your deck. And then we have 4 Zephyr. So this is one of the cards I think I'd probably have to cut down to 2. So if you want to go up a Razor Gale or a 3 Visits or something else in the deck, I'm actually kind of thinking about, putting in a couple more allies, honestly. But I'll get to that later. 4 Zephyrs, puts us counter on Vanitas, and we can bounce other things that are in our way. We can protect our own stuff, whatever it might be. Zephyr is pretty decent with that. And then we have 2 Verdigris. Honestly, I would probably side a couple more of these, or Scatter Essence, sorry. Destroys a Fantasia, which is very relevant nowadays. You can suppress an ally, suppressing a baby green or gray, or maybe an Ascent, or we do have Dream Fairies in deck, is very solid. Also, giving something +2 attack might just be enough to push board and kill off something and protect something, whatever it might be. Verdigris is very, very solid. Again, I think I'd run more on the side. We have 4 Cyclical Breeze. Really, really good card. Obviously, it's what's going to give us more value. Allows us to get back those Veilings if we need to, but probably more likely than not, we're actually going to grab back Fairy Whispers, because we need to dig as much as possible, and so Cyclical Breeze is probably what that main purpose is going to be for, because we don't have Bagwas, and we are worried about nullifying Mirror, and so honestly just getting value off of the Fairy Whispers is probably more worth it. And then of course, our one of Diablo Ray. People don't play around it, you get insane value. They basically missed their materialization, and you got an extra one that you weren't even trying to get, and you get a floating memory because you're Vanitas. So honestly, it's very, very solid card. And then we'll move on to some utility cards, or I should say, actually these are probably more like value cards. Turbocharge, just a one-of. We only need a one-of, we only need to see one-of. You could go up to two if you really wanted to, really want to guarantee that backup charger. Maybe you make a consistent plan of where you're going to go backup charger every turn and pretty much find turbocharge every single game. I could understand that, but I like to keep it at a 1. 3 of Escape, again, you could go 4, but trying to make this so it doesn't feel like your hand is really clogged up and that you can actually play something every single turn to gain value, whatever it might be. Escape the Wreckage just allows us to get a card back after we already gained a card off of Baby Gray or Windmill Engineer. And then same thing with Reclaim, allows us, helps us to level up. We get that floating memory for Cleric Robes. That's all it is. Allows us to regain value off our allies, or maybe protect an ally too. And then speaking of allies, we got the slime package for Baby Gray. You get to draw a card. It's just good. There's not much more to that. We do have 3 Slime Shield. Again, you could go to 4 if you want to make it a little more consistent, but this is a very dead card in your hand. I just don't like it as much. It's a little awkward, I will say, the slime package, because we are at 4 Baby Green though. 100% would be at 4 Baby Green no matter what. Really solid card. Even lists that aren't playing Gray or Slime Shield and not like a slime package is still playing Baby Green, because you can gain a decent amount of value, and it does suppress a target item or weapon for you or your opponent, and it can just come in handy in that way. And then non-slimes, we do have 4 Windmill Engineer. This should be no surprise to anyone. This is a very solid card that allows us to replace itself, and then most likely pick it up, escape it, reclaim it, whatever it might be. Windmill Engineer is really, really good. We have 4 ASIN. This is also another thing. We want to hit all those allies that we've been talking about with ASINs, so that way you get to put a big 3-4 on board to help fight for board, protect ourselves, whatever it might be. ASINs are really, really solid. When playing it, I would try to focus ASINs getting on board, because you are missing that burst damage we got from 3 visits. Before you could just do Razor Gales and 3 visits. Now it's more like you play a Razor Gale early, and now when you play a wind ally, you're gaining basically an unentered, deal 1 damage to your opponent, which is really solid. So ASIN's really, really cool, and if you're bouncing a bunch of your allies, again, ASIN gets a little better with that Razor Gale and all that stuff. And then we're at 3 Dream Fairies. We kind of need to play this. Allies are a thing, and Merlin's still kind of a thing, Slimes are a thing. We're going a little bit more on board, and so we wanted to get rid of those taunts, interceptors, wherever it might be, and just big threats and stop them from doing stuff. Really nice is that we can bounce this, replay it, bounce it at, suppress it in their main phase when they try to go kill it off, and then it comes back to their end phase and bounces whatever the thing that was trying to kill it off, was. Usually like a deer is a really solid, a really solid example of that. So that is Dream Fairy for you. That's it for the deck. I know that was fast, but it's a list we've seen before. I'll link, one of the top lists from Toronto, and one of those further back lists as well that topped some other regionals as well, and how this is kind of a combination of the two. But I hope you guys enjoyed the deck list, test it out, take it to locals. It's still very, very solid. I think there's some tweaks that can be made to still make it very viable in the meta, but still definitely not a dead deck by any means. That's all I have for you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.